Hello, friends. Today we are celebrating Black History Month here in the USA, and I wanted to showcase some Black creatives because representation matters and we're out here creating things. Today we're talking with Serena from Serena. Say hi, Serena.
Hey guys.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, so I am Serena from Instagram and YouTube. I like to sew my own vintage reproduction clothes using original patterns, and I also sew with vintage sewing machines exclusively, with the exception of my modern serger. So that's me.
So, what got you started with your craft?
I've always been into sewing. Like I've always found it interesting, and I've always been a crafter. And it wasn't until I want to say 5 years ago when I was kind of super into school and I quit work to do it that I needed a creative outlet. And I was just gifted a sewing machine. So I decided to take that sewing machine and kind of just start playing with it. I didn't know what I was going to make. I didn't know that I was going to be sewing vintage at the time. I just wanted to just do something besides studying. And then it kind of took over my life. I got more and more into it. And then because of the vintage sewing machine, I was like, hey, what if I made vintage clothes too? And then it kind of just sparked my interest from there. And I've always loved vintage, so it was like fun that I could make my own reproduction clothes, especially because it was hard to find my size in true vintage. So it was just easier to do because I think everybody might have that issue
Yeah.
because you don't, like, a lot of people don't fit the old sizing, and whatever survived, it's not a guarantee it's going to fit you. So with my very, I feel like I'm more of a junior size, like a child size. So finding like child size vintage clothing, I don't think would just be everywhere. So it really helped to be able to make my own clothes. And that's kind of where it started. And then it kind of just blew up into something more than I ever intended it to be. I just thought I'd just be stitching here and there. Now I sew every day.
Nice. So, what's your creative process like?
Um, Daydreaming. I do a lot of that.
Mhm.
I daydream a lot. I'm always thinking about wanting to just try new things. Currently, my list just grows and grows and grows. So I always have a project because I'm just like, oh, I didn't get to make this last fall, so let me do it this fall. But I just do a lot of daydreaming and just wondering what would something look like on me, or would this be a challenge to sew? Because part of enjoying the sewing is being able to like try new things. And so sometimes that comes with challenges as well. So I think the further on that I get into sewing, the more authentic I try and make things. Like this dress, for instance, I ran out of iron-on interfacing, so I did the sewing kind, like
Mhm.
they wanted you to, and it actually turned out better than the iron-in one. So then I'm just like, if this works well the way they intended it to, what else should be done the way that they say to? So
Mhm.
like my process isn't very like I don't feel like I have like the perfect step by step process, but I, because there's no pressure and I don't sew for like for profit, I can do whatever I want. Like it stays creative through and through. If I'm inspired, I do it. If I'm not, I don't.
Mhm. Nice. Um, how has being a Black person sort of made your experience in this craft? Have you faced any obstacles?
Um, I think it's weird. At the time that I showcased my and started my Instagram, it was only about a year before everything happened back last March with everyone being more woke and being more anti-racist. So I think at the time that I came in, it made things easier for me. But I think prior to that, I already went into like doing social media and sharing my craft as I may not do as well as my white counterparts. So if I'm going to do this, this needs to be about having fun because who knows what the results are going to be. And I don't want to have any expectations to let myself down because I already knew, like, you go on the explore page and you see like there's no one like you.
Yeah.
So you already know that, like, you're probably not going to end up there. So don't necessarily shoot for there if you intend to have fun. You know, I don't want to be sad if I don't make it to where I want to be.
Mm.
So I went into that. So it was already not, it, I wasn't going to be let down regardless. And at the time, I didn't have any sewing friends. So I was like, if I get a little bit of community or people to talk to on a daily basis about what I like, then I'm already winning. So to an extent, I feel like it's been okay because of the time that I started. But then there's other times where you do feel like maybe you're kind of a guest in someone else's house when you dress vintage, because we have to go the extra step to do everything. Like there's always resources, and I feel like there's inspiration so much for white women and white people, and I feel like we have to dig a little harder or search a little further. And like I have natural hair, so it's like, who do I find to do hairstyles? Like it's just, I think it's harder. And I do get, you know, you get the typical you were born in the wrong time thing. I feel like we all get that and things like that. But I think overall my experience has been good, but I only credit that to the time at which I started all of this. I think it could have been worse. And it took me a really long time to dress vintage full time because I was afraid. And in my personal life, I get weird stares all the time. I either get someone looking at me really weird and strange, or I get people happy that I'm dressed this way. So it's like online and in life is two different places. I think online has been a lot more kind to me, I think. And then in person, it's a hit or miss.
Okay. What is your favorite material to work with?
I like cotton, like natural cotton, not natural fibers in general. And because like I sew on a budget, cotton's usually the most affordable. And then I would say poly cotton is a very close next to that, because I can get vintage bed sheets to get it more authentic look or fun look, depending if you get super cute florals. And then like my holy grail favorite that I don't sew with often is wool. I love wool, but it's pretty expensive. So those are my favorites.
Nice.
But usually you'll find me in a cotton. So if like I'm always wrinkly, you just have to keep in mind, look, I'm a mom, I'm always picking up kids, and then I'm wearing cotton. So I'm usually always wrinkled, but I like cotton. It's super breathable. It washes really easy. You throw it in the wash, you can set it to whatever, and you don't have, you know, dry cleaning requirements and things like that. So I love a good cotton or a poly cotton.
Nice. And you touched on this already, but what has been your experience since the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement on social media last year?
Yeah, I think it was, well, I have mixed feelings on that. I think me being pregnant at the time had a lot to do with my feelings, because it was just overwhelming for me. It was overwhelming, I think, for just any Black person in general, no matter what their state was, but being extra emotional in the time it was kind of hard. And like a lot of times I want to say that I didn't want to be online, but then also I felt like an obligation too, because I was just like, this is your moment. Like, people want to hear you, they want to see you, so you need to be there. Like you need to be there for it. You can't shy away. But then there was a lot of times I was just like, it was overwhelmed. It was just too much. I felt like it was just too much. But then a lot of times I had to think, like, you don't get to choose, Serena. You either want the attention, or you want your voice to be heard, or you don't. And so I think it was just a lot. I think as we moved through it got easier and easier, but initially it was just too much. I was very sad. I was very happy. I think there was just too many emotions going on at once, and it was too much. I don't know how I don't know how everybody else made it through there, but I know I was like barely hanging on. But also appreciative. I'm very appreciative of it happening, but I don't think we were prepared for it to happen, because it was like one day everything was normal, and then the next we're going through this huge Black Lives Matter situation on top of a pandemic. And then like, to me, I'm just like, you see all of our people out there, and then you're also afraid for them because it's a pandemic, and you're like, we want you to march, but then we're also the most affected by the pandemic. So it's like, I don't know, it was just overwhelming to me. I was just like, there's too many emotions, but I think it was positive. I definitely think it needed to happen, and it was positive, and it was a step in the right direction, and I'm very happy for it, but I think it was a lot.
Mhm. Have you mentored anyone else, or has anyone mentored you?
So far, no. I want to say that I get a lot of help when I reach out for it,
Mhm.
and I give a lot of help when I do, but I don't sometimes feel like I'm qualified enough to be someone's mentor because I feel like I'm always learning. But I
Mhm.
like to pass on everything I learned. So I'm not holding on
Yes.
to it, but I also don't feel like I'm like, girl, there's someone else, or guy, there's someone better than me out there, I'm sure, because I'm trying to find them too.
Mhm.
But I never feel qualified enough. Like I always say that, like I rarely use the word seamstress because I feel like maybe I should just call myself a crafter, because maybe that's like a title that I haven't reached yet or something like that. So I definitely, I don't have a mentor, but I have super, super helpful people in my circle. I get, I never feel like I can't reach out for help.
Yeah.
I think the vintage sewing community as a whole has been very welcoming to me. So I never feel like if I ask for help, someone won't help me. And then I always share what I know as well. Like I don't hold on to information because I'm very passionate about this craft, and I feel like the more people who do it, the better off we are in keeping it alive, especially when it comes to vintage techniques, because technology has been able to replace quite a bit of it. So doing things the way that they were intended to be done at the time, it needs to be passed on. And I think vintage patterns help with that because they're written down. But if you stop using them, we stop passing them on, then like sewing machines will take over everything. So yeah, I don't have a mentor, and I definitely wouldn't mind being a mentor, but just sometimes I feel like my anxiety is just like, Serena, you're not good enough. You're not good enough to mentor anybody. But if they
Yeah.
ask, you can answer.
Mhm. Um, which project do you consider your greatest accomplishment? If you don't have one, what is one you're working towards?
Um, my greatest accomplishment. I want to say my hats. I think
Mhm.
collectively, because each hat that I start with is a little bit not as great as the last. And I think so far, after about a year and a half of working at it, that I've gotten really good at my hats. And but they are right now. However, I feel like my holy grail, or like the project that I aspire to do, is actually a costuming project,
Mm.
because one, that's not something that I do, and it's
Mhm.
not something that I aspire to do on a consistent basis,
Yeah.
but I'm always in awe at what you guys do, and I'm just like, I would like to try that. Who knows, it might be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I could use all my techniques and put it into this big beautiful gown that I can just put on once a year. Like I would love to do that, and I'm already married, so it's like I'm not going to get another shot at a wedding dress, well, for a reason. I could make a wedding dress, but there would be no reason for it. But like if I could do one big pretty costuming gown thing, like I don't even know time periods or anything, but like if I could do a really good researched, thorough, beautiful project like that, I think that would be awesome to be able to be like, I used all these little bits of tips and tricks and techniques, and I made this one big thing that displays all of those
Mhm.
things that I learned. So I'd love to do that.
Nice. Join us.
No, you guys spend way too much money on that crap. I'm just like, how do you how do you afford it? I feel like my husband would be like, you want to do what? For what? Like even like the petticoats that I have now, they're like all over the place because I don't want them crushed. I don't know how to like preserve them. I'm like, where do these people, what closets do they use? How do they store these things? So I'm just like, I can only do one good project before he kicks me out. I don't know if I mentioned, but I also collect vintage machines. So it's like on top of just sewing, I have like 10, 15 sewing machines.
Oh my
So it's like,
gosh.
right. And
Nice.
they're not small.
Yeah,
So
no.
it's like too many hobbies.
It happens.
Yeah, it takes over my life. So I'm just like, one good costume and do not fall in love. Just one.
Um, do you have any family members who share in your creativity?
Are you there? Oh, would you say?
Do you have any family
It
members who share
froze.
in your creativity?
I would say my grandma. She
Mhm,
doesn't necessarily sew as much as I do, but she can sew. She taught me how to use a sewing machine.
mhm,
But um, we grew up, well, not we. She grew up in a third world country. She immigrated here. So she's always been a maker. You know, if you can't afford to like buy everything, you have to make everything. So I got my creativity from her because there's nothing I've ever asked her for that she didn't deliver through actually making it. So I've I share that with her, and every time I sew, I feel like I'm closer to her. And then I have a great grandmother that I never met on my mom's side that apparently was a really amazing seamstress. And she's the only person in our family that was like a professional at sewing, you know, that was her job. And
mhm,
I actually have her sewing machine. They gave it to me. So I haven't used it yet because I have to source a pedal for it. But yeah, I have her sewing machine and I'd love to sew it. So they always say, like, oh, your great grandmother would be so proud of you, or you remind me of your great grandmother. And I don't know her, but
mhm,
I feel like maybe I do channel her when I'm sewing because
mhm.
I just picked it up, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Aw.
and then that's like, I guess, creative in the traditional sense because other people create, but in a different way. Like my dad's an electrician, and he also renovates all his housing and things, and he does a lot of beautiful creative things with his apartment buildings and things like that. And so what he does is beautiful, but he wouldn't consider it art, although I think structurally it's very pretty. And then my husband's an engineer, and while he doesn't paint or do anything like that, he definitely makes things work, and he does a lot of practical creativity, I guess you could
Mhm.
call it.
Nice. What does representation matters mean to you?
Um, it means that representation matters means to me that I don't know how to say this eloquently, but
Okay.
it means that we all get to see a little bit of us in everything that we do. It gives people things to aspire to. And I know for a long time I was waiting. It took me so long to dress vintage because I was waiting to see someone look like me do it. It sometimes it helps give you confidence.
Yeah.
So it's not that you can't do it without the representation, but it makes it seem more possible when there's representation. And it doesn't feel like you shouldn't be doing it. And I think sometimes, especially when you're doing things that not a lot of people, not saying that a lot of people, Black people don't dress vintage, but if you don't see a lot of it, I think a lot of people try and tell you that you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't do it because other people like you don't do it, and it's not that they don't do it, it's just that you don't see it. So it kind of gives the naysayer proof. Sorry,
Mhm.
are you there?
Yes.
Sorry, I got a call, but it kind of gives the naysayer proof, like you shouldn't do it because look, no one like you is doing it.
Mhm.
And so representation matters a lot because it gives us an opportunity to build community. Like having someone you can look up to. Like I don't know if I'm helping encourage other people, Black women, learn how to sew. I sure hope so, whether they're showing like sewing vintage or not. But I think through that we'll be able to build community. You know, once we can all congregate under a comment section or on a YouTube channel or something like that, we can build community. I think it's really important to have representation.
Mhm.
It makes things a whole lot. I don't know. When I first saw your Instagram, I was so happy. I was thrilled to pieces. Like I was like, another Black girl sewing. no matter what it is that she's sewing, and then you're sewing vintage and you're doing costuming, and then like especially when you guys do costuming, like my holy grail is to do costuming. So it's like I know I'm not alone. And sometimes you just need that push.
Yes.
Especially someone who's like really nervous like me. Sometimes I'm just like, are you out there? And it just makes me happy. It just makes you happy. It's like finding a neighbor.
Yes.
So yeah, representation matters. And I see a lot of people in the comment section say that, like, you don't necessarily have to be inspired by someone who looks like you. And it's true, you don't have to, but sometimes it just makes it seem more possible. It seems more tangible when someone looks like you.
Yes.
Like there's space, there's a way. So yeah, really important.
What advice do you want to give to other Black creatives?
Keep doing what you love. There's a market for it. People want to see you. Do what you love and don't be afraid to share it. I was afraid for a really long time because I was perfectly content with just like sewing within my household. But people want to see you do it. I want to see Black creatives do it, whether you're sewing or not. Like I get excited seeing other Black people do what makes them excited, like happy. I get so happy to see that. I have a lot of pride in sewing. I enjoy sewing, but sometimes I feel like we're not allowed to just be happy with like silliness, and we always have to monetize what we're doing or do things the way people want us to do them. And I enjoy seeing Black people just have fun. So do what makes you happy, no matter what it is. And I follow a lot of creatives, even when they're doing things that I would never try. Like if you're gardening and you're happy gardening, I'm there with you. I can't keep anything alive but my children, but I'm right there with you. I'm watching, I'm cheering you on. It makes me happy to see us be creative.
Yes.
So don't let anyone stop you. And if you don't see yourself in a craft that you want to, you need to be that person. Like if you have to be the first, like online or popular, whatever the case may be that person, because you're really making people like you. You're making them happy. You're encouraging them to try as well. So I think we should nurture each other's crafts, no matter what it is.
And do you have anything else you want to say?
Not really. I want to thank you for having me on here.
Of course.
Oh my gosh, I'm such a bag of nerves, but I'm really thankful that you have me on here. I'm really excited. One of my goals for this year was to be more, like participate more. I think it's so easy for me to stay in my shell. So I'm really thankful to have me on your channel.
Oh, I'm glad.
I really
I'm glad to have
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you for having me.
Yay.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you, Serena, for your time. I've linked all her social media and payment links in the description below. Thank you all for watching, and remember, we are Black History. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.